Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. For those who are new, welcome. My name is Monica. In today's video, I'm going to go over some Nora books. So I'm going to make this as quick as possible because I have a full house and very limited time to film anything. And I have someone sleeping in this room. So I'm just going to quickly go over these and talk about why I think you should read them. The first book is Blue Dahlia. This is book 1 in the Garden series. This one it's more paranormal than contemporary, but it's contemporary. So in the beginning of the book, Stella's husband unexpectedly dies, leaving her a single mom of 2 kids. So she moves down to Tennessee. I think it was from Chicago. Anyway, and she goes to live where her father and her stepmother lives, but Stella with her 2 sons end up moving into Harper House, which is owned by Roz, and she works for her garden center. But working at Harper House in the nursery, Stella meets Logan, and it's their romance, and he's a typical Nora hero, but she also meets Haley, who also comes to live at Harper House. And there's a ghost story behind this where something happened, I think, 100 or so years ago, and there's a ghost who loves little children, especially male children. And we start to see why this is, but not really. They think that this ghost is benign until towards the very end when a couple things happen. The romance is good and it sets up the overarching plot very well. So I moved directly into Black Rose, which is the second book, and this one is about Rosalind Harper and her romance with Mitchell Carnegie. So Mitchell Carnegie is a genealogist. So they want to look up to see who this ghost was. So they hired Mitchell to find out who this ghost is. And Roz and Mitchell hit it off and they spend time together and stuff. But there's a lot of old ghosts to come out and play in this one. And I'm saying that metaphorically. There's really only one actual ghost. But I really liked the romance in this one. I think this romance is stronger than the first book. Mitch is a fantastic character and he matches Roz's energy because she's coming kind of domineering and chaotic, and I absolutely love her. And he's very patient with her. And we find out who the ghost is. It was called the Harper Bride, and we find out her name. Well, we don't find out exactly what happens, but we know that something bad happened to her. And so that's book 2. And then we go on to book 3, this is about Haley. Haley, we met in the first book and she came to Harper House pregnant. She has a little girl named Lily now, and we meet Roz's oldest son, Harper, and it's their romance. Harper was attracted to Haley early on in the trilogy, and when they started dating, the ghosts started picking up more bad behavior and stuff, and they figure out who the ghost is, why she liked children over men, specifically adult Harper men, like Roz's lineage. And we understand what happened to her, and it's very sad what happened to her. But anyway, this was a very, very solid series. It was really good. It was a little creepy, but I would recommend it. The next book I want to talk about is Night Moves. And this I think was written in 1985-ish. And this one is about Maggie, who purchased a large home with a big plot of land in the middle of nowhere to get away from Los Angeles because her husband had unalived himself. Anyway, this one, Maggie works as a musician and she's a composer. She makes movie scores. Cliff is hired to build a pond in her backyard and to do the yard work. He owns his own landscaping company. And that's when they find a body buried in her backyard. Now, if it was me, I'd be out of there real quick. But Maggie's like, okay, I'm going to stay. We are going to figure out who this is and stuff. And there's a lot of tension between Cliff and Maggie, and he's the typical Nora hero. So if you know, you know. I really like the suspense plot. I liked how we find out who the skeleton is and why the skeleton was placed there to begin with, and why the owner of the skeleton was murdered. So, and Maggie ends up being in the center of it because she bought that house with that land, because there's some secrets that get unburied, pun intended. So I would recommend this one. It is shorter and it's fantastic. Next one I want to talk about is one I read years ago when it was first published, and I can't tell you when that was first published. but I gave it 4.5 stars. It's Midnight by You, and we're going to be reading this, I think, in October for Jess from Peace Love Book, her Patreon, how we are reading Nora books each month. This one is a paranormal romance, and it's about Declan, who moves into a haunted plantation after he moves to New Orleans, and he meets Lena, and he wants her right away. She's attracted to him, but she is more tentative than he is, and there is this whole big story about this house being haunted and about past lives, and it is so well done. I absolutely loved this one. It was very solid. I liked Declan because he's a Yankee from Boston who moves down to New Orleans, and they gave him grief about that, which is pretty funny. But I also really liked Lena's character. She was very headstrong, but she was also very grounded, and I really liked the paranormal suspense part of it. It was really well done, and we find out who is what and what is who and why there is a baby crying, and they go to this one room. So I can't wait for everybody to read this in October. And then one that I tend to kind of reread almost every year, not quite yet, but I am actually going to be rereading this very soon. It's Hideaway, and this was one of her newer romances. And this one is about Kate. She comes from an acting dynasty. Think about the Barrymores or the Douglases or whoever, like the big acting families where everybody just, people are doing their family's work. Anyway, she was kidnapped when she was a little girl, and she escaped from her kidnappers. And she meets Dylan when she's little because she finds his ranch, and her and Dylan becomes friends. And then she grows up and she goes, well, she was already into acting at this point, but things happen and someone is kind of stalking her. Well, not kind of, is stalking her. They're using this kidnapping as a way to torture her, and she goes through her life until she has to stand up for herself. And Dylan is there in the background for a little bit, but then he comes more to the foreground. I really liked it. I think it was a really good one. I gave 5 stars. I really liked Kate, and I really liked Dylan, and I really loved Kate's family. Her family is big and Irish and awesome, and I really liked Dylan's grandmother and his grandmother. Like, she's someone I would aspire to be when I get old. So yeah, I am excited to hear what people say about this one. So the last book that I want to talk about, and it's not a 4.5 or 5 stars like the others, but I just read it and I really want to talk about it. And this was published in 1991, and it reads like it. And it is wild. It is so wild. Like, I deemed Christy, I was like, don't read this book, but I kind of want you to read it because I really want your opinion on this, because my mind was just like, I was like, what are we doing here? It was that wild. So this one is Cardinal Innocence, and I gave it 3.5 stars because, well, it was wild, and I was like, what are we doing here? I was very entertained, funny enough. So this one is about Tucker Longstreet and Caroline Waverly. So this is down in Innocence, Mississippi. Caroline moves down to her grandparents' old house in Innocence, and she's a very famous concert violinist, and she basically had exhaustion and couldn't take any more, and especially after her boyfriend doing what he did. She just cut ties with him and moved back to really get some time off for herself. And she meets Tucker Longstreet, who owns it's a farm, but I would actually say it's a plantation, and he hires people to work on the farm with cotton and stuff. And this kind of throws back to the whole South a little bit. He has this air of laziness about him, but he's really not that lazy. So anyway, he inherited this farm from his father, and he has a brother named Dwayne who is an alcoholic, and he has a sister named Josie. Anyway, so we start off with knowing that 2 women were killed in Innocence. And then we meet Edie Lou, and she is mad that Tucker is like, doesn't want to see her anymore because she wants the Longstreet name. She wants the giant plantation house. She wants the money. She doesn't really want Tucker. She just wants the money. And so she pretends that she's pregnant, and he's like, he storms out. Anyhow, that's where he meets Caroline when he's sitting near a pond on her property. He leaves, and then Caroline comes back like a couple days later, and she finds Edie Lou's body. And Edie Lou was really, it was horrific. But everybody's like, oh, maybe this was Tucker because of Edie Lou. But then also he knew the other two women, one more intimately than the other. And then there are other murders that are very similar that happened up in Tennessee. Anyway, this is so wild. We get an FBI agent who's pompous and stupid that comes in. And anyway, I wrote what I'm about to read to you down in my review. So this year, there's some of the examples of how wild the story was. So the first victim, which is Edie Lou, her father is Austin, and he is holier than thou psychopath who uses the Bible to justify his brutality. He tries to murder people. He essayed someone years ago because he felt like he had the God-given right to do that. And he abused his family, and he's very dangerous. And that's very, very important to the story. And there's a part where the characters call a cock, quote, the tool of Satan. I bursted out laughing at that one. I was like, what are we reading? Oh gosh. And then Josie has sex with a coroner in the morgue with Edie Lou's body lying under a sheet. I was like, what are we doing? And then there's active cheating and manipulation from certain female characters that are not related to Caroline. And then we find out who the killer is and why, and I'm just like, wow. I think the thesis is, can a person who has bad blood, specifically a psychopath, breed a psychopathic child? That's under the right circumstances. I was like, okay, well, I don't know. But anyway, there's alcohol abuse on Paige. The main characters, Tucker and Caroline, were well written, and their motivations were very clear, and you knew who they were. They were fantastic. And I loved that there was a friendship that was developed between Cy, who is a poor teenage boy who needed a job, and so Tucker, he gave him a job helping around the house. Cy was being abused by his father, and then Tucker, he's actually a genuinely good guy. I really liked the romantic subplot because it is a subplot. And the small town was very gossipy, very, it really felt like a small town in 1991, Mississippi. So I'm gonna leave it there. If you want to try it, you definitely should. It was very wild. I gave it 3.5 stars because, well, the stuff was interesting. I was definitely entertained. So anyway, those are the Nora books that I wanted to highlight that I have read so far or will be finished rereading in 2025. Let me know if you have read any of these down below, or are you excited to read Hideaway or Midnight Bayou? Let me know all the things. And if you made it this far in this video and you want to let me know that you're here, please leave me a pocket watch because it's on the cover of Midnight Bayou. And until next time, my friends, happy reading. Bye.